Well, good afternoon, good morning, all that kind of good stuff. Thornton, how are you? Welcome.
I am delighted to be here with my old mentor, my leader.
Well, it's really a pleasure to be here today, and it's interesting. A lot of people don't know kind of our backstory, which is that you and I go way back. And as a matter of fact, for those that don't know, Thornton, to probably his everlasting embarrassment, was the chair of the search committee that hired me to run AIM, and so we go back a long ways. And it's really it's fun to be here. The idea behind this show, which I think a lot of people know, is this concept of oxymorons in organizations, and this idea that we spend so much time theoretically talking about people, process, and technology. And we usually say that we put it in that order. And then the reality is that we actually flip it ahead, and we have beautiful PowerPoints, and we talk about how layers of technology connect together and magic occurs at the edges and all this kind of good stuff. And the reality is that people actually make this thing work. And so, when I think about that, there's two kinds of people I typically run into. And I wish I had both of these skills. I don't know that I do, but they are people that have great visions, and they have this idea of where they want to go, and often they aren't able to translate that into action. And then you get the people that are loaded up with lots and lots of tiny little detailed lists and plans, and they can never turn it into anything that actually changes things. And so those oxymorons are the people that I think about, that are visionary pragmatists, or practical dreamers that kind of take those two skill sets and combine them. And so, Thornton, you're a perfect embodiment of that. And you've wear many hats. Why don't you give everybody a sense of just quickly, what the Digital Value Institute's about, what you're up to these days?
Well, hi, everyone. And it's great to be back with John. John, thanks so much for letting me be part of this wonderful new venture that you're doing. And congratulations on all the great stuff that you're doing with infotection. And so what I'm doing is I'm still basically, I'm still I'm a classically trained cultural anthropologist. I'm a futurist. I'm still very active at the Ohio State University, where we're doing executive outreach. And with Atley Sheckland, who was like basically the inaugural oxymoron, if you will. Basically, we've created something called the Digital Value Institute, which is basically helping people move forward in their move to digital. And because we all know that we're heading that way, and basically we do a lot of outreach to try and work with thought leaders like John to basically get the word out. Is that don't lose hope. You're not alone. There's a body of knowledge, and there are some things where we just have to experiment because we don't have any data to work with. So I'm still very, very optimistic about where we're going, and a little impatient about when we're going to get there. But I think that we're all accelerating, so it's good.
So, well, it's really terrific to have you here. I think one of the things that's nice about this platform is that you never can quite tell where it's going to go. So anybody out there that has comments, wants to kind of join in and kibitz and all that kind of good stuff, we'd love to have you. And so let me start with a couple of my traditional introductory questions, just to mainly because I don't like to do those long bios. But to give people a flavor of who you are, is that I don't even know if you watch TV, Thornton, but if you do, what was your binge watch during COVID?
Well, no, it's great. Thanks so much for asking me. No, I think everybody does, because streaming is one of those new things that is definitely happening. But no, on Prime Video, basically, there is a wonderful police procedural called New Tricks. And actually, it originally aired basically on BBC One, basically from 2003 to 2015, and it's New Tricks, and that name comes from, it's sort of a spin on, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. But this is one of the most popular shows, or was one of the most popular shows in Britain. And what it does is it's an ensemble cast. It features a very powerful, strong, mid-career woman, basically, who is the boss. And then there's 3 retired police officers working in the Metropolitan Police Office, but they're retired. And so I think it has supreme relevance for basically our audience, particularly those of the viewers or participants in this particular thought program that we're doing, who may actually be AIM members, right? Because they're retired, but they're still supremely relevant and very idiosyncratic. And so one of the fun things about this is that the plots are very well written, but they frequently turn on, or the mystery is resolved via the application of information management, content management, intelligent information management, basically from these old guys. So old guys new. So I think the message for all of us is that even in a totally digital world, in a world that has moved on, our skill set still has relevance. So it's not so much we need to learn new tricks, is that our skill sets are still relevant and applicable to basically the problems of the day.
Oh, awesome segue there from British crime drama back into content management. So somebody breaks into your Spotify playlist. What would surprise them?
Well, it's interesting. So people who know me know that I had a very interesting childhood. As my mother was a spy, and I was outsourced as a child. I was sent away to military academy at the age of 5.5. So one would think, you ask, what's surprising? What's the surprise on your Spotify playlist? Well, you'd be surprised to know that I don't have a lot of martial music on there because I grew up with that, right? So not a lot of marching stuff. But those that I actually come from an old Detroit automobile family. So basically when I was as a postgraduate studying at the actually I think every day was an all-nighter, but I was basically learning the Japanese language at the Center for Japanese Studies at the University of Michigan, and I would listen to all the Motown and basically the Luther Vandross and the OJs and the Shy Lights and the Spinners and all that. But it comes back to because I was international and I grew up in the Midwest, basically Cleveland and Detroit. Detroit actually probably has some, Cleveland. Nobody ever considered me a cultured guy. So I actually went to Australia. Basically, in 2012, I went to Australia and I went to the Sydney Opera House. And I actually went to something. This was 2012. It was August, and I actually went to something called, it was this thing called symphonic dances. So let me tell you, because I wouldn't know classical music if it bit me on the backside and shook me. But there are actually three of them that I do recommend. And I actually have them here is Johann Brahms Piano Concerto No. 1 in D minor, Opera 815, basically that was good. And then Dvorak, basically the Carnival Overture, Opera 92. And then Sergei Rachmaninoff, Symphonic Dances, Op 43. So it's just amazing stuff. And I sat there way in the back, and it just changed my life, because I said, wow, even Thornton, the guy with the opposable thumbs as a growth area for me, can enjoy that. And then the next day after that, I actually went to a presentation at the Sydney Opera House of Mozart's Don Giovanni. So just amazing. Ooh. So those guys. So when I go back to that, it's kind of interesting, kind of fun, and then what I'm actually, for those of you, because this virus thing, this pandemic adventure we're all on, it's changed our lives. So I'm actually doing yoga, and to do yoga, but you can actually listen to Buddhist gong music, but no, that's a little, but I actually listen to reggae music. And so if you know a group basically called, what's it called? It's called Stick Figure, and the album Set in Stone, just you can bend to that, and basically, because I do special ed yoga, right? For
my wife tried to get me to do yoga, and it was probably the most embarrassing thing that I did.
Now that you're doing it alone, no, you don't want to do it in a group. No, that's terrible. No, because
it was just the two of us, and I still couldn't do it.
She's all over the place. You have to do that, and the reason being is that we are going to live to be 150. You're not even people who are 50 say, oh, I'm over there. No, you're not even a third of the way there. But the thing is, you got to take care of the machine, right? And just a little bending, and it's, there's yoga for sloths. That's me. You know, I mean, like, you know, this is, but you do it at your own time frame, and it's and there are all kinds of resources out there. Go to Instagram basically, and basically, you know, just look at some yoga stuff, and their modifications. They're modifications, right? So like, because the great thing about this is, like, you know, there are these experts, right? You know, like shoo. No. For us mere mortals, we can do this.
All right, I'm going to hold off on the favorite book till the end. That'll be your wrap up. So think about that one. Right. So let me hop into this oxymoron question. Is you know, as you've talked to innovators all the time. I've seen some of them at the DVI events, and they're really interesting and really dynamic. Have you noticed any trends among them about where they get their ideas from? Like, what's the source of this innovation fire that resides within them? Any patterns?
Well, the thing about great innovators is, I think we've actually flipped the narrative on. It used to be like, you know, the single individual working in the cave alone, but no, the great innovators of our day, and I think for the next century probably, are going to be connected and connectors. All right, because it comes from this collision of ideas and conversations. So people such as yourself and who are out there actually talking to people, right? Which is why the fact that like these shared spaces that we used to create and participate in so actively have dried up during the pandemic, that it is going to create a problem or a hiccup in the innovation world, because innovation requires basically scratch and sniff, knees under a table collisions of people having these conversations. And but it's the people, it's people who actually are talking to folks. And this is why you've actually seen this, you know, you've seen a bevy, an amazing amount of investment in new collaborative platforms such as a Clubhouse and that, where people are actually getting together and talking. And so, but that's really where it's the ideas of talking to smart people. And then, so one, you got to have smart people talking around each other, right? But then ultimately, the real driver of innovation is somebody with a good problem.
So that might go to the next question I wanted to ask, which is this question about validating ideas. You know, I don't know about you, but I sit around all the time. I drive my wife crazy, and, you know, how about this? How about this? How about this? How about this? And then she's the one we're like, you know, okay, well, what about this? What about this? What about this? What about this? And so that validation process.
Validate. But now validation, that's such an SAT word. You know, I know I'm dating myself. I don't even know whether they have SATs anymore. but you know, scholastic aptitude test. But no, that's one of those big polysyllabic, you know, but it also implies right or wrong. Right, you know, in the true innovation space, there's no such thing as right or wrong. There's just directionally non-toxicity, right? You know, so you're actually moving the ball along, type of stuff. So you validate it when you actually learn. You validate that when the idea won't work, you know, or like, you know, it's not getting you where you're trying to get to, but you're also, did I learn something? Did I move the ball forward? And so that's really where validation comes from, I think.
So when you get these, you know, you get a bunch of guys and women together at the DVI, and all these innovators, and there must be some common things that really annoy them, that drive them crazy, that piss them off. What are those things?
Well, the people who say no, I know that in that brilliant first session that you had with Atlee. And by the way, it's wonderful. These OxyMoron episodes are actually archived, so you can actually go back and see them. But like my colleague and friend and wonderkind, basically, you know, Atlee Shecklin, basically, you know, he mentioned.
Don't say too many nice things about him. You don't have to say too many nice things.
No, I'm not. I actually believe this stuff. You know, even though he's Norwegian. You know, I mean, but anyway. So he said that, you know, there's a real role for skepticism, right? Well, yeah, there is a role for skeptic, but there are some people who are not just skeptic. They just have negative energy, right? You know, I mean, we want people. You really want, and Paul Gaffney, who used to be the CIO at Home Depot, and then he was I think he's now like the chief operating officer at Kohl's. But Paul Gaffney is a brilliant individual. He says, but you want people who are difficult. Basically high maintenance, and basically, well, I'm not certain about this, or I don't. Those are the people from which they're the irritant from which the pearl of innovation, which actually creates commercialization, actually come from. So you want that, but you don't want negative energy. You want people who say like, I'm concerned, but I am convincible. Versus there are some people who just basically it's black and white, and like that's a reason why there aren't a lot of Zoroastrian churches anymore, because it doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, that idea of irritants, I think is a good one, because it's this concept of you don't want the negativism, but you do want somebody kind of pushing, prodding, poking, and that helps. That helps refine ideas and kind of push them in the next
and also it changes the dynamic, because remember back in my background in Japanese studies, and also as doing many ethnographic studies of Japanese environments, it's like it used to be that senior management in America hid basically the customer problems, right? That versus the Japanese celebrated them because they said, wow, there's a customer problem, but that's actually an opportunity for us to improve. So you start with an irritant, and then you bring in some irritants. Well, the reason this and that's, but then ultimately, the goal is to be efficacious, to produce a positive desired output. You want to improve. You want to improve, and so that's where the validation comes from. There was a problem. Did the problem get better? It's almost like the innovator's Hippocratic oath.
Yeah, one thing that I've noticed is that, and this is a personal bias of mine, is that I run into people all the time that think that great innovators and kind of oxymorons are fearless. Mm-hmm. And while I think they have a lot of courage, mm-hmm. that's different than being fearless. And right. So do you find, how do you find innovators look at the question of the potential of failing? How do they deal with that?
Well, it's interesting. I think the innovators actually are, they're an interesting animal, but I think they're amazingly risk aware, right? Because they don't really view it as failing, because but they experiment. It's an experiment. They don't really, they're not hedge fund guys. They don't say, well, it's not, it's my money. But no, but great on serial entrepreneurs, basically, it does take courage, because you are asking people, the humans, to trust you to go forward. And another wonderful human being in this space is Bill Seibel, who's basically, and he's actually sold 4 companies to like Larry Ellison, right? So it does take courage to be to actually go out there and create a new entity, so it's that, but you're not really, but failure, but they don't really, if you don't have a couple, well, that didn't work so well, basically on the resume, you're not going to be taken seriously by venture capitalists and sources of capital.
Yeah, and I think one of the things too that somebody pointed out earlier in the series is this idea of failing fast, right, and not having a penalty for right. failing. And I used to laugh, and sometimes in some of my past organizations, I'd think like, oh my gosh, the half-life of our successes is like a nanosecond. And then like the half-life of our failures, people would come back and they'd be like, well, we did this 10 years ago. It's like 10 years ago. Anyway, so
well, the other thing that is like, you also have to be carnivorous, right? Basically, or actually, what is it? Cannibalistic, because you have to, there's some idea, you have to let go of ideas that don't work.
Yeah, that's hard.
Yeah. Well, not really. Yeah, but if you do the experiment right, and that's why if you test the hypothesis correctly, right, all of business is a hypothesis, right, and then where it really gets powerful and actually risk free almost is where you get the customer to buy into your experiments with you, which is what the genius of Amazon, if you will. So
yeah, and kind of like that constant iteration that goes right. around and around and around and around. So. Do you think these folks have any kind of particular secret sauce that you've seen, or multiple sauces, or what makes them tick?
I think a lot of people say, well, they got to be extrovert. No, there's some brilliant, basically introverted innovators, right? But what they need is you need a lot of energy. I mean, I mean, people, like people say, Thornton, you're exhausting me. But that's because I'm a little animal. Little animals have to move faster in the forest, right? Because you're going to bang into a lot of walls, right? And so when you had a hard skull, right, basically, and also say, well, that didn't work, and that didn't work, and so you have to have that. You have to have and you got to have a sense of humor. I mean, and basically, I just think that, being a happy person, I mean, I actually think happiness is a choice, right? I really do. And so I choose to be happy and surround yourself with people who create this positive energy, right? Because life is really, as I get older, and I am getting older, I mean, I find that, I surround myself with people who are upbeat, right? Who basically, versus, and not a lot of sad sacks, right? Because I can't, unfortunately, I'm not a good enough leader to fix that. I'm not a therapist, right? I'm saying we're going to a good place, and we got good people with us, and we're going to have a great time along the way. But that's all I can do.
Yeah, I love that character, that Rachel Dratch character on Saturday Night Live with the Debbie Downer. Yeah. And it's and we've all been in organizations where you'll kind of have these like nice roundtable meetings and a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of excitement, and then you get the like wah wah, and you gotta, more than any other type, at least for me, this is my, I've got to weed those people out because they just bring me down, and they're not adding to the equation.
And you have to be a Renaissance man, but the Renaissance man, I don't mean being clever or having all these skill sets, right? But the Renaissance, the great gift that the Renaissance gave humankind, basically, was the invention of progress, right? This idea that things will get better. And I think that one of the traumas that we're having here in the United States and maybe some other regions around the world is that maybe people have said, like, well, things don't necessarily have to get better. Well, they don't have to get better, but if we keep plugging away at it, I think we can make them better.
Yep. And the other thing which that I've noticed amongst people that I admire a lot in this area is the ability to see very different things, right, and make connections between them. And get out of their silos, get out of their their mindset, and say like, oh, if we added this to this and, sprinkled a little of this on top of it, we'd have something really cool. And
exactly. You combine stuff. You absolutely combine stuff. Yes.
So I'll put you on the spot for your quote, because as I told you earlier, I had an eye doctor appointment this morning and I can't read any of my notes. So but you're go through your quote about bad shoes and not having maps.
No, every organization, every individual, basically every institution, basically is on a digital journey. And unfortunately, most people have, basically do not have a good map, don't have a compass, and are probably wearing bad shoes.
I love it because it's exactly.
Yeah. But you need a map. You need a horizon. You definitely need because what this pandemic has done to us is like because I'm a futurist but the future the future used to be like 25 years. I did 25-year programs for the Navy and for the DoD and things like that. Now the future is like 3 years is a long-term strategic plan, but like it's actually, and then it was 18 months. And then the pandemic, it actually got down, it was 18 days, it was 18, and now it's the 18 minutes that you basically have on a Zoom call.
Yeah. Well,
we've condensed to that. And so we have to fight to elongate our planning horizon. It's like not what do we want for the next quarter, but what are we looking at out, basically, where do we want to be in 2025? That's what we're working at the Ohio, when you think about it, the Japanese used to have 500-year, basically strategic plans, and now we're sitting there, give me 4 years, please give me 4 years.
It's interesting too, how, particularly when it comes to remote work and deploying some of those tools that are, necessary to facilitate remote work, how the pressure cooker of COVID, compressed the decision-making time frame down from, something that we used to be like this long. And then they said, gosh, we can't do an example. We can't do wet signatures on a document. And so I talked to all these people that deployed digital signatures in like 30 days. and normally they would take,
problems will take as we all know this, problems will consume the amount of time available for them. But like when you say like, here's the deal, right? Basically, if you're at Harvard Business School trying to get your classes online, or if you're basically, or the Mayo Clinic basically saying nobody's going to come to the doctor's office, you're going to have to do telemedicine, right? And you're going to have to do teleteaching, right? And they figured it out, right? And there were some, those first couple. There were some ugly babies. There were some ugly babies.
Yes, those first couple telemedicine appointments were just hilarious because it would be it'd be like hello, this kind of thing, and and now it's now I would think to myself, well, for a lot of things,
right?
Why wouldn't I do that?
Exactly. No, I mean that, and think of, there's such a huge dividend. I mean, like people are going to say, like, why did you commute to work?
Yeah,
and that's what and you've got a whole generation. There's actually another very interesting group of deep thinkers now. It's called the International Facility Managers Association, right? And because these are the people who manage like big event venues, and they actually manage like these are the facility managers who manage like the buildings for Microsoft and the buildings for the Pentagon and all. And they said so. Now they said, well, we're going to have to, we're now health arbiters, which means we have to have a lot of health data and all that type of stuff. But also, we're going to have to rethink why people come to work.
Yeah.
Why and when they come to work.
Yeah. And under what conditions, and who gets to approve what, and who gets to decide it, and how do you document it, and blah, 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 all that stuff. It's amazing. All right, let me let's wrap up on a inspirational note with some book that you read over the last 12 months.
And this is a book. This is the book that everybody has to read, and it's and it's a scholar that you'll thank me that I put you in touch with it. The individual's name is Dr. Tevi, Tevi Troy, Troy, and I don't know. And he is both he's a bona fide, credentialed, respected, and revered academic. Basically, he did his undergraduate work at Cornell. He did his PhD at the University of Texas at Austin, where I used to serve on several PhD committees. Basically, but the book's name is basically "Shall We Wake the President? 2 Centuries of Disaster Management in the Oval Office."
Oh my gosh. Wow, that sounds awesome.
And it was done in 2016. And the interesting thing is, not only is he a presidential historian, he actually was basically inside the Oval Office. Actually, he was actually the former Deputy Secretary of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, which is the largest civilian agency out there, right? So he was a big dog. He's also the person in charge of basically terrorism. And now I know a lot. Now, unfortunately, people in our business, in information management, content management, are like, they're cheap. I'm not even going to say value focused. They're cheap. They don't spend money. So they're probably not going to go out and buy a book. Even you can buy it on Amazon cheap. But now here's the thing. On Kindle, you can actually get the first chapter for free. So go to Kindle, and you can get Kindle on your computational device for free as well. So do this, right? And then go get the first chapter of this guy's book. It is amazing. Because these expectations of our leadership is that, well, we should have known. I mean, this was done in 2016, and the first chapter talks all about like the virus that they worked on. I guess it was Ebola or something like that. So it's really, really powerful stuff. And he is a great oxymoron as well. He's actually, a thinker and a doer, and he's been there, and he's funny, and he's got stories. So I think you will it's a great read.
So Thornton, it's been a blast. Thank you very much for the time. And I have the Digital Value Institute URL on the screen. Would urge everybody to check it out. Some really, really insightful reports on that website. And thank you very much. It's been fun.
Thank you, my friend. Stay safe.